What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. Now, I'm pretty sure most, if not all of you, have heard now about the breaking news that broke late last night that Indiana Colts quarterback Andrew Luck announces retirement effective immediately. In a statement, I'm not saying it verbatim, but he pretty much said that there are certain things in his personal life that he did not find enjoyable anymore due to the strain of football and that football wasn't enjoyable in itself anymore, that he'd be best served walking away from the game. Now, I know a lot of Colts fans are pissed off at him and about the situation, but Andrew Luck has had a series of injuries over the years, and it could be a combination of several factors. It could be, Andrew Luck's body just isn't the same anymore. Maybe he just feels as though physically he can't do it anymore. Maybe mentally he's just not into it anymore. Um, Many people have criticized the Indiana Colts protection or offensive line um, for one of the primary reasons why he gets hit so often, sacked so often, and maybe he's just tired of it. Maybe he can tell that if he keeps going through this, um, he's going to have some of the issues that are starting to afflict a guy like Brett Favre, who's not even 50 years old yet, but has complained of memory loss. Maybe he doesn't want to be another victim of CTE, as was Mike Webster, the former Steelers great, the center who was terribly plagued by CTE toward the end of his toward the end of his life. Um, but yeah, pretty much I think that's what it is, man. I think the Colts lack of protection, the sacks. I think that has a lot to do with it. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Steve Young, who infamously threatened to sue members of his offensive line, I think it was, back in the 90s before he ultimately retired. Um, it is what it is, man. I know there can be some people who'll say something like, well, damn, if this guy's complaining about, contact nowadays, how would he feel 20 years ago? Now, I understand that. But, we're now seeing in football what happens to a lot of these guys, in particular, um, quarterbacks. Uh, for many times they've been sacked and whatnot. And we're starting to see a lot of these guys and what happens after football. We saw the autopsy show that Junior Seau, who's only 44 years old, had CTE. And I noticed in the back of some of these guys' minds, some of these guys probably had, a couple concussions. And all it takes is a couple of concussions. This is a different era. Should be a much more informed era than the era that you and I grew up in back in the 80s into the 90s. Um, I don't really have a problem with a lot of these guys in football walking away with the money. A lot of people might sit there and say, "Oh man, these guys aren't the warriors that in the past." Football's a different beast to me. Football and boxing, you literally can put your life on the line. Now, boxing is more immediate. Boxing is more immediate with as far as dying. We've seen the last month or so actual boxers who died per result of injuries in the ring. Football is it's a little bit more long term. Okay, you retire after a near 20-year career. You've been playing football ever since you were a little kid on some level, ever since you were 10 years old or something, 11 years old, right? And Now all of a sudden you're 40 years old. You've been playing football for nearly 40 years on some level. Can you imagine how many times you've been hit? How many times your brain has suffered even a jarring, in the sac that it's contained in, um, even if it's just a little bit at a time. The brain isn't designed to be hit like that. Uh, so yeah, you might feel fine when you're 40 years old because these things, the breakdown process hasn't really started yet. But by the time you're 50, you're very forgetful, and by the time you're 60, you can barely function, and you still have another 15 years to live. What type of life is that? Who wants to live like that? Basically, a vegetable. You know what I mean? Or the other way around, when you're, fine, as far as moving around, but inside, you walk around like you're a 60-year-old man, really mobile, but inside you have the brain of a 100-year-old man. Who wants to live like that? So I don't have a problem with what Andrew Luck did. If I were a Colts fan, I'd be disappointed. And who knows, Andrew Luck might decide, may decide to come back to football. We don't know. Maybe he just needs a break. Maybe if he sees the team improving in certain areas, as far as protections, I'm pretty sure, uh, maybe he'll come back. But right now, you got to respect his decision. I'm pretty sure he's good, like I said, financially, and that's it. You know. So, that being said, want to switched up a little bit. I used to say it's the beginning, but maybe I'll say it at the end. Like my content, so if you want to donate to my channel, you want to support True Offer TV, you can do so. Links provided in the description box below. And I have a Patreon account, and I try to upload on there relatively, frequently. And you guys can, if you choose to, uh, subscribe to the Patreon for the very low cost of only $2 per month. On the Patreon, I'm able to talk about stuff that I obviously can't talk about on YouTube, or at least the totally unfiltered and uncensored version.